based on this male figure, we will now go to a female figure and try to fit it into a similar grid, with only change that the height we considered as 72 inches for a male figure. We will consider the average women's height, which comes somewhere up to here, and the overall procedure remains the same of fitting it into 2 by 8. So I'll directly take a grid which is 2 by 8. So if you try to match this two, you will find that the height is slightly lesser. So in this total height, we have divided it into 8 parts, and this same part we put it here into 2. So similarly, if this is x, this is 2x. So we get a female human figure which is 64 inches high. The male figure was 72 inches high, which is 5 feet 4 inches, but fitting into the same grid of 2 by 8. We will start with the bone structure, and while drawing we will compare it with the male figure to understand where the difference is. So now you've found out that once the height is lesser, the width is also less, and that's why the size of the face is also smaller. So if we draw the face, since this overall width is less, 1/3 of this is less, so width and height wise the face is slightly smaller than the male face. The skeleton, the bone structure also becomes smaller, and as we compare from here, we found out that the shoulder line that we are going to draw is the center of this, then the center of this, and the center of this. This part is neck. We find out the neck here and the neck here. This is a thicker neck, this is a thinner neck, which we will draw when we put the muscular enclosure on top of this. Now we'll draw the rib cage. The same lines as well, this 0. You have the knees here, then you have the crotch here, so this is equal 2 and 2. Then you have the navel here, and the breast line is somewhere below this line. So the structure here, we saw that the shoulders are wider in case of males. In case of females, they are lesser, so they go between this and this line. This was the original red line, and this was the green line where your structure, bone structure stops. Here in this case, this is still smaller. So you saw this, the shoulders touched the green line. In case of males, here it has come inside. Now if we draw the hands, they come to the crotch line. That details remains the same. It goes below this line. So how much less is the center of this? The center of this. This is somewhere the wrist goes. Same with this side. We find out the length. this is the center of this. This is where your elbow comes. This is equal to this. This is equal to this. Now with this line into consideration, we will draw the rib cage. Now there is a difference between the rib cage here and here. The rib cage also falls inside, less wider than the male. Okay, so this is lesser than this because the shoulders are also small, and this you have so this is where it stops, the center of it, near the elbows. So the rib cage is almost going a little bit lower than the elbows. And when we come at the crotch part, the pelvic bone, this diamond, or this shape, that which almond shape that we have drawn, this goes a bit wider. And the hip bones, so this part is wider than this. The knees are same as the male, at the same height. The ankles, this is where this we are assuming that we see the front of the feet, and that's why it is fits into a triangle. And here again the hand, this is equal. Now once we have this, let us now see what the difference between these two is. The main structural framework, we try to put a geometry into this. If you join these two, and join this here, this is how the inverted triangle looks. And if you join these two and join this, so this is bigger than this. If you try to impose the same triangle here, every time you draw a human figure, you need not go through all these steps. But if you know these fundamentals, whenever you draw a male and a female, an adult, upright standing, you will know how the shoulders are wide here. This is less here. This at the hips is slightly bigger, whereas here it is lesser. So when you put the clothes on, when you put the muscle enclosure on this and this has to look different, and unless we know the structure, we will not be able to do this. This is where the sternum is. So you saw the rib cage, you saw the pelvic area. This is how it looks. Now if we put the muscular cover to this, what we find in the males is the neck is thicker, whereas here it is thin. You have wider shoulders, and this is how the shoulders come in. This is how the muscles this we saw as the chest line. The rib cage. The biceps. So we saw the muscular enclosure to the bone skeleton of a male. From here on we go on to the muscular structure for the female. You'll see when you compare the male and female, the neck portion here is thin, whereas here it is thicker, here it is thinner and a bit longer. The shoulders are, the width of the shoulders is less. This we had said the second grade. You have the chest and the nipples almost lie on this line, whereas the chest goes a little below it. Here what we see is this goes a bit less, and we saw the cage inside, the rib cage. So the shape goes along with the rib cage. This you can see the basic difference, that the width is more at the hip portion, and then gradually it reduces as it goes to the feet. The elbows, the rib cage goes above it, the hips, the ankles, and then we come back to the face, so this is how you can compare. If you take this bottom line, you can see which heights match where. Overall, the height of the female figure is smaller than the male. Since this is smaller, the width is also smaller. Then you found out that the shoulders, here it is less, here it is more, whereas the shoulders are bigger here, this is small. Now that we have seen this from the structure, we will revise this to see the finished man with the clothing on. A quick revision. Now that we have the male and the female human figure ready with us, before we go to the back, side, how do they look? What is the proportion from the sides and back? We have the bone structure inside and the frame. The red line shows how this is wide at the top, at the shoulders for the male, whereas this goes smaller, reduced in width for the female. At the hips, this has a straight fall, not much of a bulge, and this width here is almost or smaller than the shoulders, whereas in the females, here at the hips, this is wider than the shoulders. So you see the difference in the triangles. Now for the proportions to learn, 8 parts. This is the crotch. Below this you have 4 parts. Above this it is 4 parts. So a tip to remember is one face, 3 parts of the body, which includes the neck, part neck, and 4 parts for the limbs or the feet, legs. So it is 4 plus 3 plus 1. If you take the shoulders with muscles, the entire male body fits into 2 squares, which is equal to the height of the face. The feet, as we said, is 4 parts, 2 parts from the hips, from the crotch to the knees, from the knees to the ankle. So it is 2 and 2. If you check the hands, from the shoulder to the wrist is slightly lower than the crotch, and below this you have the palm. Entire length of the hand from the shoulders to the palm end is 3 grids, that is 3 times the height of the face. So even if you move this, it is going to be 3 times, this is going to be 4 times. The cage, the rib cage, almost ends at the elbow. When you draw from this to this, which is below the crotch, take the center of this rib cage almost ends here. So you have this much rib cage, then you have the pelvic bone. If you see this, for the females, this shape and this shape here at females is different. Here this is slightly wider, because of which the hips are bigger. Here it is compressed, so you have this as the bigger arm and you have the feet here, whereas here you have this widened to go this. So it goes like this. So with this revision, we had drawn this to a bigger scale for you to understand. Now we'll go back to what you can practice at home on your standard A4 sheet. So you can make such grids ready. This is standard A4. You have 2 grids drawn here, 2 by 8. One for the male, one for the female. Both 8 parts, 2 by 8. But you can see that each part is less because the height is lesser. And you have all the dotted lines here which we have discussed. If you make this and have Xeroxes made instead of drawing this every time, because this measurements have to be exact and these lines have to be parallel, the distance being same everywhere. If you are not good at drawing parallel lines, then and the measurements are not correct, the human figure can go haywire. So first what you need is an A4 size with this grid. At a time you can draw the male and female. Once you start drawing, the first drawing that you have is the basic grid, what comes at what height. So if you go from the ground up, first you have the ankles, then you have the knees at the second grid, then you have the crotch at the fourth, then you have the navel at the third. So it goes a little less lower for the female, and as we go up you have the chest, then the chin line and the face. So this is the same thing as this to understand the basic proportions. So you have the front, the male and the female with the bone structure and the muscular structure which we just saw. To the left you have the back side of the male figure. Now that we know this, I haven't drawn the bone structure here. This is what you see from back. This and this is the same as 2 by 8, same as this and this is same, where you have the structure 2 by 8, the front, the back, the front, the back, the side here of the male, the side here of the female. So if you see in this, 1, 2, 3, 4 are the grids of 2 by 8, that is 2 units by 8 units, and the width of the figure, when you see it, it is almost 1.6 to 1.8 times depending upon the physique of a person. But here you can find out when you start and when you have the center line, how the feet are, how the bulge comes here, how the chest comes here, and how it touches the box. The yellow color shows the negative areas of the box, which gives you the profile of the human figure. Based on this, now you can practice dressing this up, and once you dress this, you'll find this is how it looks when you dress it. Again, the yellow part shows how this goes. The blue dotted shows how the figure inside the muscular part is, and the brown part shows how the clothing is draped and how it takes the shape of the muscles, both this male and female, and at what heights. So if you remember this numbers and what comes at what height, it is very easy for you to draw.